There's a lot of reasons why the layman thinks he's getting taxed. Some think it's to pay for roads, bridges, things of that nature. Others think, oh, it's just to fund social programs, and that's terrible. And the reality is a lot more twisted than you think. This is why we need to repeal the 16th Amendment. We're going to break down modern monetary theory right now.
Doesn't anyone notice this? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
I don't want you to ride. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the streets. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad.
Has the whole world gone crazy? Am I the only one around here who gives a shit about the rules?
You have the luxury of not knowing what I know.
I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!
All right, so welcome everybody. I wanted to take, I was going to do this as a pre-recorded video, but I decided to go ahead and do it live because I thought people may have questions and there may be things that come up, and it's just easier to handle them while I'm on. So, but really the point today is to break down the concept of not why you think we pay taxes and not why traditionally everyone believes we pay taxes, but what the elites actually believe. And that's in accordance with modern monetary theory. Sherry Briggs, how are you? South Carolina in the house. But what the elites believe is very different than what we think. All right. So when you talk to someone, or even if you just ask yourself, what are we being taxed for? Well, you might, depending on what side of the aisle you're coming from, you may say, well, we need to tax to pay for roads and bridges, and we need, infrastructure and water utilities and such. You say, okay. Other people might say, well, we need it for social programs, and we need it to pay for, welfare, and we need it to pay, and maybe you're mad that they're paying for all this stuff. Regardless, that's not the case. So in the end, all right, and I'm going to break down Stephanie Kelton, our good friend Stephanie Kelton, who we went over in the first video that we did this with, when we covered modern monetary theory. The reason I'm doing it again is to put a better focus on the taxes piece, all right, and why they tax. Because technically, by modern monetary theory, if they're correct, which they are not, but if they were correct, all right, you don't need to tax. The government doesn't need to tax. Any government holding a fiat currency, meaning a superior currency, so the United States, UK, right, with the pound, or anything like that, they don't need to tax. So because they make the case, and this is a big piece of WEF and how they plan on operating, that ever since the gold standard ended, there's no need to collect revenue. All right, they only collect it for the sake of controlling behavior. That's it. All right. And that's, they'll tell you this. Now, Stephanie Kelton, who is one of our favorite dootadoos in this whole thing. All right. She's their poster child. She's a former economic advisor to Bernie Sanders. Now it makes sense. Right. And she's the reason she and those who taught her, all right, are the reason. And this is Republicans too, by the way. So Dick Cheney, going back to the Reagan years, all right, is quoted as saying deficits don't matter, all right? And there's a reason why they believe this way, because they believe that if you are the fiat currency, if you have a major currency in the world, all right, and without a gold standard, meaning there's nothing really truly tied to your dollar. This is all on the belief system. And by the way, that's how Bitcoin came about, all right? There's a difference with Bitcoin, though, because there's scarcity and nobody can dump more Bitcoin in mass into the system. It's mined, okay? Meaning it's generated through an organic process of coin mining, which happens through multiple computers. I don't want to get too into Bitcoin, but the point is there's scarcity with Bitcoin, all right? There's a finite amount of it with only a little bit trickling in organically to add to follow its growth. That's not the case with our dollar, as we all know. And one of the things you might be asking yourself, and may have always asked yourself, is, well, how could someone vote in favor of a bill that spends trillions of dollars when we've already spent all the money that we've collected in taxes, hence the 30 plus $trillion deficit? Well, the way you do it is by simply making more money. And when I say making more money, I don't mean earning more money. I mean a few strokes of the keyboard and poof, there's another $1 trillion in the economy, another 100 billion in the economy. And of course, the situation with this is inflation. Now, the quotes you're about to hear from Stephanie Kelton, all right, are going to explain that. I was able to locate a video of her. All right, when we covered her the last time, she was inferring that taxes were used to control behavior. And so I had to work off of that inference. Now, with modern monetary theory, this is an assumed value if you pay attention to it, but I was able to get her to articulate it herself, which was special. Okay, that was a special little nugget that she gave us. Now, the first clip I'm going to play for you, you may want to turn up your phone volume or turn up your television volume wherever you're watching from, because I did reduce some of the noise in the background, but she was speaking, I don't know who to, but I think it was at like a collegiate, economist conference of some sort. But she does get into, this is back in 2018. So the gem here is that she downplays inflation in a few of these quotes and has no, like, now that we got hindsight and we see, and the number one criticism of this entire philosophy was inflation. And now fast forward to today, and we know that modern monetary theory is an epic failure. But it's important to keep in mind, this is what the WEF plans on implementing via digital currency. Okay, so this is the idea. So let's get into the first clip and we'll break it down.
You take from the rich, you give to the poor, right? That's what Robin Hood did. But this means that you have to fight two battles. You have to fight for the agenda that you're fighting for, and you have to sell the policies on their own merits, and you simultaneously have to wage war on another front, which is you have to fight to raise the revenue. You have to get people to vote for the tax increase, or the closing of the loopholes, or whatever it is that's giving you the additional.
So I started with that quote because that's how she sees the current economy. Well, correction. She knows that we're deep in with modern monetary theory. That's the way she sees classic thinking, is that you can't do something without bringing in revenue or raising revenue for it. What's significant about it is the only way. Now, this is what we consider to be an intellectual today. Okay. This woman was taught by other economists who were taught by other economists who all believe this stuff. And what she's saying there and inferring that it's silly is that you have to raise money in order to spend money, which is common sense. And it's not just common. It's not like, oh, well, you're a simpleton and you don't get it. It's still common sense. All right. But in her world, all right, the only way to raise money for a government is by raising taxes. So she has no concept of what the economy has done historically when taxes have been cut. All right. She sees tax cuts because this is the way she's been taught. It never occurred to her to look at the reality of what has happened. But when capital gains cuts in particular, all right, income taxes, when they cut capital gains tax, all right, the economy booms every single time they do it. Every single time, including Bill Clinton, who cut capital gains tax. All right. Now, when you get a president who presides over a really successful economy, there's usually another factor helping him. All right. Reagan had the credit card boom with the introduction and high use of credit cards. Clinton had the internet the bubble that eventually burst in 2001, which we didn't really feel because taxes were cut immediately as a result. Right. Every time capital gains tax is cut, the economy generates more revenue. All right. In her world, the only thing that can generate revenue is you got to figure out a way to take more money from the wealthy. And there's just not enough money within the wealthy, unless you're going to go after the Rothschilds, there's not enough money in the wealthy to pay for these utopian things that they want. But here's another. So this one. Here's what she's going to bring that point home again. This is a lot quicker. She's going to basically talk about it like it's intuitive, but it's only intuitive to progressives. Again, turn your mics up or turn your volume up, because it's it's the best I could do to reduce the noise on this. But in order to hear it, you might have to raise the volume a little.
How do progressives? How should we talk about this? How do you pay for a progressive agenda if these are the constraints? Because this is the current narrative. You have to find the money. Okay, who's got the money? The rich people have the money, and the banks have the money, right? So that's where you go for the money. It seems perfectly logical, right? Obviously, it's intuitive.
Obviously, it's intuitive. Who's got the money? The rich people got the money. So that's who we have to tax. And this is the way. This is the progressive mindset, right? This is it. They can't. I don't know why. How many times it has to get demonstrated that cutting certain taxes will always raise revenue. And the reason why it raises, if you're watching this and you're like, well, how could cutting taxes raise revenue? It's the economic activity. This is why capital gains tax is the biggest one to cut. Because it's not because, oh, you're cutting capital gains because that's where all the rich hedge fund investors are. No. But it is where investors are. And the fact of the matter is, when capital gains come down, it lowers the risk of investment. And as a result, and increases the reward, right? So as a result, there becomes a boom in investment. And as investment starts to boom, companies begin to boom. And when companies begin to boom, people start to get hired. Okay? It's not crazy theory, but she can't understand it, and neither can any of the elites behind her. Okay, and this is one of the. It's always been one of the most baffling things to me. But I want to. There's one more before she goes off and straight out tells you, and that's her vision. So just to give you an idea, right? She acknowledges inflation, so I'll give her credit there. It's just that she downplays it, like it's something like, oh yeah, there's a possibility of inflation, but then we just control behavior with more taxes and we're fine. And it doesn't work that way. And it's never worked that way. And all this is why they still call it modern monetary theory and not modern monetary fact, because they don't even know. And now we do know, but just so you know, even amidst the inflation that we're dealing with right now, this woman is out there telling people, even as economists are saying now out loud, where before, they were afraid of the woke mob, now they're saying out loud, look, we know modern monetary theory is a failure now. We know it is. We're watching it fail. She's out there arguing, no, it's not modern monetary theory's fault. You can't blame, and coming up with a whole this woman is in the mass formation psychosis of economics, of economic theory, and she's not alone. All right. The stuff that she's been taught has been taught ever since 1971. And it's stuff that our government has been operating under. It's a concept that our government has been operating under forever, and they believe it. So if you want to know why you can't elect somebody to go ahead and fix these problems, it's because they all believe it. All right? They all believe it. And they're going, no matter who it is. All right? Trump went in with the best of intentions, but he didn't do squat for the debt. He didn't do squat. All right, the deficit remained. The debt clock did not slow down one iota. If we want to fix this problem, folks, we're the ones that have to fix it, right? But here's her talking about COVID spending.
Spending trillions to support the economy during the pandemic put the deficit to good use. We just had the shortest recession in U.S. history. To me, that was fiscally responsible.
To her, that was fiscally responsible. Right now, obviously, she didn't know it. That was a TED Talk that she did. So just to give you an idea, she's all over the place, okay? She's all over the place, this one, preaching this stuff. And there are college students who are listening to her like she's not bat crap crazy, All right. And this is what I want everyone that watches us and everybody that's involved with us to know, that she is bat crap crazy. All right. And that's not how this works. All right. The spending that we did in number one, we created that crisis. And I don't mean, I'm not going down the rabbit hole of we created the virus. What I'm talking about is the virus is there. It was our reaction, not COVID-19. It was our horrible, the same elites that she wants to run this entire show. It was their actions, period. They're the ones who shut down everything. They're the ones who destroyed the economy. So the idea that they somehow, while we're already in that current year in deficit, the idea that you could just dish out money. Now, I get the argument from people saying, look, they shut us down. This was a righteous cause to give money. In one sense, yes. In the other sense, no, because they should have never shut it down. So for her to say that that was a fiscally responsible decision, no, it wasn't. It wasn't fiscally responsible to give unemployment, people on unemployment, more money in government incentive than they were making when they were working. That's not fiscally responsible. But this is an intellectual, folks. This is an expert, right? And this is the whole idea. When I say to people that these dutarus, with their degrees and with their when I tell you that a college degree right now is meaningless, I heard Charlie Kirk saying, look, sending your kids to college today, college should be the most avoided thing for your kids today. Now, I wouldn't go that far, depending on what they want to do, but the days of sending them to college just to get a bachelor's degree, because of these ridiculous statistics that college students end up earning more and this and that, none of those statistics factor in the debt that those children are in, and none of those statistics really none of those statistics really matter. The fact of the matter is, learning a trade is far better today than just getting a bachelor's degree. Most companies will if you're good at what you do, they'll get over the lack of degree. Google already analyzed all this and stopped doing that a long time ago. So it's just a point to be made of the garbage that our friggin' universities, the garbage thought that our universities are putting out right now. So here's one more.
Just as a 6 becomes a 9 when we view it from a different angle, a government deficit becomes a financial surplus when we look at it from another perspective. A deficit hawk might look at this picture and see nothing but a sea of worrying red ink. That's not how I look at it. Here's what I see. I see what's happening on the other side of the government's ledger. When the government spends more than it taxes away from us, it makes a financial contribution to some other part of the economy. Their red ink is our black ink. When you look at it this way, it becomes clear that every deficit is good for someone.
Every deficit is good for someone. You see how she puts up that graphic, like the deficit spending, all that red was deficit spending, and she mirrored it on the black side to be like, look, it's really helping someone. So I'm going to teach Stephanie Kelton a quick economics lesson here, okay? There is absolutely not one penny that the government can ever spend that will help the economy. The best the government could ever do under any circumstance ever is either hold the line or be neutral. That's it. Every penny that gets put in needs to be extracted first. Now, she doesn't believe this, all right? She believes that it doesn't need to be extracted. And this is where we get a $30 trillion debt, is because people who think like her. Because what they do is they say, you know what, we don't need to take that money out of the economy. We can just tap, 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 tap. There you go. There's the money. Now, what's the problem with that? The problem with that is the $15 steak that you got to buy that was $6 last week. Okay? That's the problem with that. It doesn't work that way. But this woman believes it. And Maureen Williams says they sure did. What a mess they made of the world, not a brain between any of them. Yeah, and that's the thing, Maureen. You know what? It's not that they don't have brains. It's not that they don't know anything. What did Reagan say? It's not that they don't know anything. It's that they know so much that isn't true. Right? And that's really what it comes down to, is that they know so much that isn't true. This is what happens when you allow your universities and your education system to get inundated without any resistance whatsoever. And it's gone on for so long that her professor's professor had learned this nonsense. And that's something that is going to be almost impossible to undo. All right. And the only thing left right now, all right, there are a few generations of the sane left. And the fact of the matter is, if we don't get this under control, and we know what the way to do that is, right? We know that this fiscal nonsense can be corrected with a convention of states. It ain't simple, but with a convention of states, this can get corrected. All right. But this is what we're up against. All right. This woman is advising presidential candidates. All right. So it's not like she's just some doo-doo that we pulled out of a high school who doesn't know her butt from her elbow. This chick is actually for real. She's out there doing TED Talks, and people who don't know anything about economics are watching her and thinking, wow, that's interesting. I never thought about it that way. And you shouldn't think about it that way, is what I'm going to tell you right now. You should not. And then Shari says here, I'm sorry, I feel Trump would have helped lower taxes if he didn't spend so much time trying to defend himself against the criminal Democrats. And I agree that unemployment income was total BS. Yeah, the unemployment thing was ridiculous. So the fact that this woman is sitting there in all of her intellectual splendor and saying that the COVID spending was fiscally responsible is absurd. And as far as Trump, lowering taxes if he didn't spend so much time trying to defend himself, that's one of the concerns that I had. I don't think Trump came in on tax reform. All right. So whatever it is that was in that tax quote unquote cut that he did, it was a nightmare. I've paid more taxes ever since. I don't know what the hell went on there. My accountant is as straight down the line as it gets. He was like, yeah, this one hurt. He's like, this one hurt. And the reality of the matter is Trump doesn't really understand all that stuff. He understands economics from the standpoint of business, but when it comes down to a 1,600-page tax bill that every freaking politician went in and redlined and stuck different stuff in and did this and that to get it passed, like, he's not reading all that. He's not reading it all. I guarantee you. And it certainly wasn't reform. Like, I was looking, when you say tax reform, I'm thinking 16th Amendment is gone. Not that you could repeal it yourself, but I'm thinking we're done with the income tax and we're going to a flat tax. We're going to a consumption tax. We're going to something reasonable and rational, but we're not. We're still in the wealth sharing. We're still in the wealth sharing group, and that's not doing anybody any good. And yes, Darren, this woman is absolutely insane. There is absolutely no doubt about that. But you know what? It's like it's kind of that situation where the circle she's in, right? She's brilliant. In the circle she's in, she's trying to explain this in simple terms to the layman. And it's like, it's just true, but don't they raise our taxes to pay the debts back? No, Shari. So here's the thing, right? This is why the debts aren't getting paid, okay? It is because they collect taxes simply to control behavior. And I'm going to have her explain that to you in just a moment because she gets right into that. All right. But in the end, the way modern monetary theory works is they really don't have to tax at all. This is how they. Sorry, I got Scooby-Doo here shooting me a text. And I just want to make sure that it's no one for the broadcast. Okay, it's not. So basically what happens is they don't believe they don't need to tax at all, right? What they're saying is this is how they plan to pay for their universal basic income. This is how they plan to pay for Medicare for all. This is how they plan to pay for, college, university education for everybody. This is how they plan to pay for everything. It's just by printing more money and then using taxes, okay, to curb the spending, to negate. So basically, you if you don't want something to happen, you just tax the hell out of it, right? So in the end, they just plan, okay, if the government, if it starts to creep to inflation, and they haven't spent nearly what they would spend. And this is why the modern monetary theory is such a failure. They haven't spent yet, even with the COVID spending and everything else, they haven't come anywhere close to spending the type of money they're talking about when they get into universal basic income. Just imagine giving every American in the country, working or not, $2,000 a month, let's say. Let's pick a figure. I think Canada proposed it at $2,000 a month, or $2,500 a month, whatever it may be. Just imagine trying to fund that. All right. At the same time, give everybody, universal health care and universal college educations. Why? So they could all come out as dumb as her. Like this is what. But imagine trying to fund that. They would literally implode. Okay, they can't control inflation now with some COVID spending, but this dude thinks that they could just fund all this stuff and that's why they want to believe this, because it makes them think that they can fund all this garbage. But you can't. Not and maintain freedom. You cannot. So the American people have a choice in front of them as to what they want to do. Do you cherish your freedom, or do you want all these little things? Or these big things, whatever you want to. Do you want all that, or do you want to be free? Because you can't have both. That's the way it works. So are we still a country that at our core is about freedom? Because if we are, then this is nonsense and cannot be dealt with. Okay? This needs to get rejected at every turn. At every turn. All right? And I have one more. This is the one where she's going to break down for you. Exact. So get your volume up. Get ready for this one. Here's where she just I fell out of my chair when I heard her articulate it this way.
You're operating in this frame of mind that money is a finite thing that exists somewhere. It's physical, and you got to find it, and then you got to go get it in order to spend. Ronald says, no. That's not how it works in the modern era. And by the way, modern in the 1940s. Right? And we still haven't caught up with this reality. So Rummel goes on to say the purpose of the tax is not to fund the federal government. The purpose of the tax is, multifold. One important thing it does is it allows the government to remove some money from the economy so that you don't overheat the economy through government spending. So in other words, taxes help you keep a lid on inflation. If you just spent money into the economy but you didn't tax anything back, you'd run the risk of overspending, overheating the economy, and causing an inflation problem. Another thing taxes do is they affect the distribution of income. You lower taxes on some folks, they end up with more take-home pay, higher disposable income. You raise taxes on others, you take some money away, you impact the distribution of income. And you use taxes to incentivize or disincentivize behavior. Carbon tax is a good example. You don't want as much pollution, you don't want certain activities taking place, put a tax on it. You want to encourage certain other things, like people driving electric cars, give a tax incentive, right? With some form of a subsidy to encourage that.
Sorry, I had a minor crisis there. All right, so let's go over what she just said, shall we? Because this is the crux of it all right here, right? And what she says in this university or whatever setting she was in is that taxes have three purposes. One is to put a lid on inflation. How'd that work out? Right? How did the elites manage that one? Because like I said earlier, we're not spending nearly the money that she's talking. She's talking about free college. She's talking throughout that whole thing. And I will add the links to the full videos that I clipped today in the YouTube descriptions. So just so you can go to our YouTube channel and watch those full videos. Most of these are coming from the same video, though. And then the second one she's got here is straight out telling you it's about the distribution of income. And this is the redistribution, of income. And this is where I put in, we need to get rid of the 16th Amendment. It needs to go away. Because the reality is this, all right? The 16th Amendment was started for one purpose, all right? And it was progressive wealth redistribution. That was the entire, and if you don't know what the 16th Amendment is, it's income taxes, all right? After getting shot down by the Supreme Court as being unconstitutional, they finally got enough do-to-dos together and the right climate. It took them, from the first time they tried it, it took them about 100 years, All right, from the first time anyone attempted an income tax was about 1812 or so. All right, and then they passed one and it got shot down, and then they tried it again, it got shot down, and they were allowed to do it during the Civil War, but then after that they removed it, tried it again, got shot down. So they made a constitutional amendment, all right, to add an income tax. All right, this was strictly a play to redistribute wealth in America, and it changed forever the way that we operate. And prior, if you're wondering how without income tax would the government be funded at all, it's through tariffs, through consumption tax, okay? And that's the fair tax. If you hear someone say fair tax, all right? There's no income tax. You keep all the money you earn from income. When you make purchases, there's an additional tax on that. All right? So whether that tax be 10% or 50%, wherever they set it, but there'll be a tax on that. All right. And that is the reason it's called the fair tax, is because everyone pays. Everyone pays. Even the guy begging for money pays, because when he goes and buys his beer, he's still paying tax on that. All right. Everybody pays. So everybody using the services pays. Everybody, the wealthy still pay more by proportion because they spend more. Like everything is, you get taxed based on consumption. You don't get penalized for being successful. You don't get praised for being unsuccessful. All right? That's the way the country is designed to be. It was never designed to be a welfare state, and it was never designed to have someone have the right to someone else's hard work, to reap the rewards of someone else's work. Okay? It was never designed to be that way. And it's terrible. The effect that it's had on society, you can sit there and go, oh, well, the wealthy are just, they're just going to make a killing. And blah, blah, blah. Look, it's important to note, all right, and Thomas Sowell breaks this down very well in one of his interviews. It's important to note that the 1%, the bottom 10%, the top 10%, it's not the same people in these percentages, with the exception of like the 0.00001%. But there are literally like 100 people like that. Right? Like the reality of the matter is, most of us are moving in and out. If you take, they take those studies and they run them and they go, look, here's where the bottom 1% was, 20 years ago or 10 years ago even. And here's where they are today. And here's where that 1% is today compared to the wealthy. Look, the gap got greater. The problem with that type of statistic is that the 1% you're talking about is a completely different group of people than the 1% you're talking about in the next, in the 10-year latest term. It's not like it's the same people. And it's not like there's a finite amount of resources that, oh, if this happens, we got to take it from here and put it to there. There's organic wealth being created all the time. This woman is a mental midget. All right, a mental midget. And I want to take some comments here. Some of them are starting to stack up. So, so here we got Darren Wayne Smith. Is even more what is even more alarming is that I didn't hear a single gasp or chuckle from the audience. Yeah, no, that's the thing, Darren, is that this woman comes in with credibility. I'm destroying her on this video, but she comes into that TED Talk and into that university. She speaks to them with credibility. They gave a round of applause when she got off. Now, I don't know how much of that was out of respect, or how much of that was, wow, that's really, some intriguing stuff. I learned a lot. Anybody who walks out of one of her talks and thinks that they learned a lot is done. They're dumber for the experience. They've walked into some place, they've listened to someone, and they walked out being dumber for the experience. Like when I see her, what is it that comes to mind when I see her? Here.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award...
Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. Everyone in the room that woman is in was dumber when they walked out than they were when they walked in. And this, the reason I'm picking her is because she's their poster child. She's the one, okay? She's the one. So we got Garrett Dryden. Nothing like freedom of being under crippling medical debt. Yeah, that's true. You know, there's not. Look, there are ways. Okay, there are ways to work on the healthcare system. We including Rand Paul, by the way, every single proposal made by any of these doodadoos involve insurance. Everyone. And as a result, what do we get? We get disasters like Obamacare, or we can get the 7 or 8 month waiting lists that we get in Canada, or but they're all generic drugs. Yeah, which means you get no cutting edge drugs. Like Canada just sits there and waits for pharmaceutical companies to create drugs to get. And I'm not defending pharmaceutical companies, but the point of the matter is, when it's all generic, it's not doing you any good either. Like, you can get generic drugs here. The fact of the matter is, these large employers, and even the smaller ones, but the large ones are the ones who are going to set the tone. If you take a company like a Verizon Wireless or a T-Mobile or a Lockheed Martin or a Boeing, and you get these companies to work out deals to pay cash and carry for all basic health care, all right, not catastrophe, not long-term hospitalization, none of that, okay, that you could pay for an insurance company. Because when that's all you're paying for, it's incredibly inexpensive. Incredibly inexpensive. All right? And there are already safety nets in place. There's still the Hippocratic Oath. There's no one's throwing somebody coming up to a hospital in dire need. No one's turning them away. All right? And no one turned them away before. And the reality of the matter is, they don't have to turn. They can get paid. They can get paid because we could put a safety net in. Here's what happens, okay? Once these companies start paying, okay? Once they start paying, and the doodadoos that you see on the screen are no longer in control, all right? And companies start paying directly. You got to go to the doctor. Doctor sends your company an invoice. Company pays the invoice. You know what happens? All the good doctors who won't accept insurance, which is what happens. None of the best doctors accept insurance. You're lying to yourself if you're telling yourself that there are phenomenal doctors in government-run systems. There are not. All right? You just don't know that because you're using a government-run system. The reality of the matter is, right now, only the wealthy get the top medical care. Okay? Under this Obamacare scheme, and it'll stay that way the more socialist this gets. Okay, because no good doctors accept insurance. The best of once they prove their mettle and they get to a certain point in their career, they won't touch insurance. They don't have to. They don't deal with Medicaid. They refer you somewhere else. You can't, you can get care. You just can't get it here. You need to go on that 6 or 8 month waiting list and get it with the rest of the minions. Only the wealthy get the good care. That's what socialist care does. Okay, that's what it does. In the end, if we made, look, an aspirin doesn't cost $15. Okay, you know why it costs $15 in a hospital? Because you're not paying for it, and you don't ask questions because your insurance is paying for it. I don't want to go down this rabbit hole too far, but there's a ton of ways to lower the cost of healthcare. All right, if these large companies set up, if private doctors, the good ones, will set up medical centers to work with companies, the large ones, okay, to cover their employees on a cash and carry basis. And I can tell you right now, by definition, every one of those employers who's paying premiums for those employees is better served and will save tons of money by negotiating actual pricing for the treatment rather than paying for insurance premiums. By nature, if they weren't, the premiums would go up. If they weren't going to save money, because insurance companies have to make money. So by nature, they have to be paying more than the insurance companies are for the care. And if they bring those costs down, now people can start to afford them. Now the smaller employers can pile on and tag on the coattails of the larger employers who have already cut these price deals with these establishments. All right, because the reality is, there's a huge, for every one that has to go into long-term care, there's 250 who never even saw a doctor that year. All right, so the reality is, insurance companies make a killing on this, and they were never designed to do this. They were only designed originally to service catastrophe, to service long-term hospitalization, somebody gets hit by a car, so whatever, something along those lines, cancer, whatever it may be. That's what insurance companies were designed for. All right. This whole monster grew like a snowball, and now everybody's answer is to stay with these insurance companies because the costs are so astronomical. Nobody stops and thinks, hey, what if we had a free market play for the cost? What if Boeing and Lockheed Martin, et cetera, all signed up with this medical group that is now building nationwide to cover Boeing? What if now another medical group comes in and wants Boeing's business? What happens then? I could tell you what happens. The cost that Boeing was paying is going to go down because now you're going to have people bidding and starting these wars are going to start, these bidding wars. And it's going to look. You could boost it to get it started, but the fact of the matter is, once it starts, it'll take on a life of its own. The free market, that's how it works. That's how it works. All right. So I digress, but I appreciate your comment, Garrett. I hope I didn't sound too angry there. But let me see what else we got here. Let's take that down. All right, so Darren Wayne Smith, dumber is one thing, but willfully dumber is another. Yeah, that's when it becomes stupid, right? When you know, right? Ignorance is when you don't know, but when you, once you know and you still choose to do the whole, to do the wrong thing, then you're stupid. So Shari says government ruins lives. We need to get rid of them, but we can't get rid of government. We do need government in its basic sense. We need it to do what it's supposed to do, though. Our Constitution specifically outlines what the government's supposed to do, and that's what the government's supposed to do. And I can tell you healthcare is nowhere in government powers enumerated in the Constitution, nor is education, nor is any of this garbage, nor is work safety and all this other stuff. This is all state-run stuff. All right, all of it. All these regulatory agencies out there are there for should not be there. Well, they could be there as advisory councils, but they should not be able to make enforceable laws. The idea that they're accountable to no one is nonsense. Nonsense. If they want to pass a law for the environment, let the legislature and the elected officials do it. Don't have the EPA, or if you want to do a mask mandate, don't push that off on OSHA. OSHA doesn't have that authority. You're pushing it off on them so that you don't got to put your name on it so that when everyone goes nuts over wearing masks, that you can still get votes. It's nonsense. These regulatory agencies are a blasphemy to our Constitution. And Convention of States will address that as well. Don't get it twisted. The government overreach amendments will address that. That's one of the top things that's talked about with respect to government overreach is the tentacles of these regulatory agencies that are coming out and taking on all kinds of authority. You call it a regulation, it's an enforceable law. It's an enforceable law. And that's just the reality of it. I don't care what you call it. It's an enforceable law. And it's absolutely, I don't care what the Supreme Court said. Supreme Court said what they said. That's what they ain't going to say it when there's a constitutional amendment. And that's the whole point. Is that the system is structurally broken, right? It's broken. These dootaroos on the screen right here, these people, they believe in modern monetary theory, all right? When they create this digital currency, and we're going to do an episode, we're going to do a few episodes now upcoming on a bunch of these dootaroos, especially the guy in his spacesuit in the middle there, Klaus Schwab, right? We're going to get into all the stuff that they're doing, and we're going to take it piece by piece. The food innovation hubs, creating the chaos. That's what it is, creating the chaos. Just like they did to the economy during COVID. They created the economic problem, then caused massive inflation trying to save us from it, which was good for them because they're trying to roll in their digital currency anyway. Whether that currency is tied to the U.S. dollar or not is irrelevant to them. Sure, if it's convenient, they'll tie it to the U.S. dollar. But if Americans want to start acting up, they're going to make their own. And fine, let them make their own. Because if we get fiscally responsible, we won't be worried about it. There's nothing wrong with digital currency when it's in the form of crypto. When it's what they're talking about, there's a huge problem with it. All right, crypto cannot be traced. It's as good as cash. That's why they don't like it. Bitcoin, all that, it's all blockchain. You can look up what blockchain is. Just understand, for me, it's incredibly secure. that until we have quantum computing and things of that nature, no government is unraveling crypto. You can make private payments the same way you did with cash. What they're talking about, completely different. Full transparency, full everything. Every single transaction you make will be recorded. They will have, China's doing it now. They're controlling people's pay. They're telling people they have social scores. If you don't score well in your social score, well, then they can take away your ability to certain privileges. That's not the way you folks want to live. I don't care how nice they make it sound. It's not the way you want to live. Trust me when I tell you. So this is impossible. We need to pick better representatives that already understand that this is a thankless job, truly a public service. That's where the term limits come in, Darren. That's where the term limits come in. All right. It's not necessary right now to put term limits on state officials. Why? Because they don't freaking stay around forever. Right? They don't stay around forever. Like, a lot of people get the two confused. They think a politician is a politician. No, they're not. Yeah, there are some people in the state legislatures across this country who want to become, state senators, or, which, by the way, the 17th Amendment is another thing that needs to go. This whole elect your senator and then you can't do anything for 6 years nonsense is crazy. I understand some people don't get it and they think that electing your senator is like the way to go. It's not the way to go. And there's a reason why the founders didn't set it up that way. They're supposed to be appointed by the state legislature. Why? Because the state legislature is the closest to the people. So when Liz Cheney goes off the rails and Mitt Romney goes off the rails and stop representing, they clearly stopped representing the people that voted for them. Those people now can appeal to their state legislature and have them pulled. Well, the elites didn't want any of that going on. They didn't want any part of that. The most powerful entity politically in this country, per our founders, is the state legislature, period. Not the president of the United States, not Congress, not the Supreme Court, and not the deep state. It's the state legislatures. And we've gotten away from that, and we need to get back to that. And that's where Convention of States comes in. What did the founders put in Article 5? When they said you can amend the Constitution with no say from the federal government, who controls that entire process? The state legislature. The state legislature. They're the ones who pick the topics. They're the ones who select the delegates. They're the ones who ratify the amendments. It's the state legislatures. That's what it's all about. All right, let's see. Let me get through some more of these comments. We got a busy chat box today, but I want to make sure I get to as many as possible. So Brenda Dawson, I want a list of all WEF members and corporations. You can get, I can tell you right now, Brenda, almost every corporation is engaged with WEF. Anyone worth speaking of. So every significant, like if I start a corporation tomorrow, that's not going to be, but all the, we did this in that BlackRock episode where we were showing you, if you go to Yahoo, here's an exercise for those who didn't see that video. You can go to Yahoo Finance, all right, and open your eyes, okay, as to who actually owns this world. not this country, this world, okay? In the end, it's BlackRock and Vanguard, all right? They manage, now these two companies manage trillions upon trillions of dollars in our money, essentially, in investment money, right? But we say it's our money, but in the end, they're making the call as to where it goes. We could decide to pull it from them if we want, but we don't, because it makes money. And in the end, when you look up, in that video I was saying, when you look at Coke, we used to think there were cola wars, right? In the 80s, Pepsi versus Coke, right? And then we thought Pepsi won because Coke made the new Coke and all this. No. Who was the majority holder of both companies? BlackRock and Vanguard. State Street's in there as well. But Vanguard is really the one, but BlackRock they're right there with, like, they're together. Like, who owns Vanguard? BlackRock has a majority share. And then who owns BlackRock? Well, BlackRock and Vanguard has a majority share. So it's all twisted, all right? But you look at Apple, you think Apple, Microsoft, Google, Facebook, you think that they compete with each other? No, they're all owned, majority shared owned by those two corporations, Vanguard and BlackRock. You can go to Yahoo Finance, a simple pull up of the company, and then click on the holdings tab, and you'll see them right there on the top. I spent 45 minutes going through companies, stunned that every, and I mean every single one, they were the top two. They were the top two holders. So understand that Brenda, when those two companies are, because Larry Fisk, the CEO of BlackRock, is at he's front and center at every single Davos meeting, every single one, as is every world leader, at least in the European Union. And frankly, Xi Jinping and Putin have been to almost all of them too. So it's not an insignificant group. All right. And you just look at this guy in the middle there, Klaus Schwab. Who the hell dresses like that? Like that guy even dresses for the part of the James Bond villain. All right. Like it's crazy. It's crazy. And if you go to their website, and that's what our next bunch of episodes are going to be on, walking through their website. Because for those of you who watch us, and you understand all this because you hear them say it too, and you've looked into this stuff, and you're just kind of reinforcing and popping off questions and stuff. For you guys, it's no big deal. But how many people have you talked to where you tell them, hey, we're telling them, and they still don't listen to us? Right? Like I told my friend that they're saying this to us. They're not, like, it's not a conspiracy. They're telling you, and they don't believe it. Right? So we're going to walk, because when you read their website, all right, I joined, I read it, they email me, like, I want to stay in the loop here. Like, and I read through these things, and I'm like, it's just a bunch of doo-doo word salad. And then all of a sudden, something big comes up. Like on this topic here with the taxes, they list off there's a document. If you look up food innovation hubs, and this is one of the ones I'm going to do my next video on. When you look up food innovation hubs and you scroll down and you go to the WEF, what comes up in Google, and stay with Google on this one, not DuckDuckGo, because Google loves the WEF. So you'll see the food innovation hubs come up. You click on it and then scroll to the bottom. You'll see a PDF there. Go ahead, or you'll see a link. You hit it, and then there's a PDF to download. Scroll through that PDF, because it was written 2 years ago, and they're planning for food shortages. And in the end, what they tell you, they list off in a bunch of spots what the government's role is, what the people's role is, what everyone's role is. And more than once, they tell you one of the government roles is to use taxes to alter behavior. All right. It's not and the fact that they were planning for this food shortage tells you all you need to know. Right. And we covered this in a previous video with the Netherlands, where, what's his name? Mark Rutte, the prime minister of the Netherlands. Like, he joined the WEF with this specific intention. All right. He became their secretariat for this particular reason. And that's because the Netherlands is one of the #1 agricultural food hubs in the world. Like the end result here, and the reason why convention is so big, is because the United States needs to break out of this. We need to be self-sufficient. All right. We need to break off this entire global entangled web that they've created, where, something goes wrong in the Netherlands, and now we're worried about food in the U.S. And the food shortages, by the way, folks, for those that are telling you about them, it's not that we're gonna feel it as bad. Like, what we're gonna see, though, are massive price increases, because the people who are going to starve to death, all right, they're not in the United States. They're in Africa. They're in, like, all these billions of people in struggling countries. These are the ones that are killing off. All right. These are the ones that are killing off. And what's going to happen is the price of food is going to raise, because even our own farmers and our own agriculture and our own, dairy farms and things like that, even our own institutions are going to be shipping stuff overseas, because they're going to get 3, 4, 5 times as much money for it. And now we're still going to be, that's how we're going to feel it. It's not that we don't have the infrastructure to deal with it. We do. But the way that we're going to feel, like we could cut off the world tomorrow. And we can farm enough to feed our people. We can do everything we need to do from an infrastructure standpoint internally to be fine. But because of this global entangled market, it's not going to work out that way. And the idea that we're so contingent, that our well-being is so contingent on random crap that goes on in the world that we cannot control, all right, makes it a national security issue. All right. The fact that there are things that could crush us economically that we have no control over it's a definition of a national security issue. So, I mean, the Convention of States just brings us back local. Okay. It just takes this back locally. And that's where it should be. And there's a reason why it was set up that way. What they're trying to set up now has been done throughout history repeatedly and always failed. That's why we set things up the way we did right now. That's why we are the United States and not America, but rather the United States of America. Right? So let me grab a few more of these comments here. This is more scare tactics, must be Republican or MAGA maggots. So we got a Trump dysphoria guy here. I'm not sure. You know, whenever it always goes back to Trump for these guys. So like, there's not a lot I can do to help them, but I can definitely identify where Glenn Parker is coming from. Glenn, this one's for you.
Baby, I'm a Biden boy. I'm a Biden boy.
So, Glenn, if you watch the show and you watch our broadcast, you'll know I've been plenty critical of Trump over the course. You know, and it's not that I hate him or love him or anything like that. It's that, you know, I call it where I see it. And I just got done in this very broadcast pointing out the issues with the tax cut. I mean, it is what it is. You know, in the end, is Trump going to be better than Biden? Anyone is going to be better than Biden. And someone like even the left is not defending Biden anymore. Even the left has let that go. They're all attacking him now because they know it's over. It's been a poop show from day one. You can't destroy things any worse than like from the minute he walked into the White House, it was like the world went on fire. Like instantly the world went on fire. So, you know, it is what it is. Is that Prince Charles in that group of clown show? Yes, it is Prince Charles. And in the teaser video that we initially put out for the Great Reset, we have the video of Prince Charles explaining why we need a Great Reset and dialing in with the Davos folks. But he is 100% in. He's 100% in. I may re-release that video. It does well every time we re-release it. So Brenda says if a WEF member leaves or resigns, another WEF member will replace them. Yes, there's no doubt. It's not a matter of the WEF is not. The WEF is an arm of the UN, right? So that's like the functioning tool of the UN, because and in the end, like the UN has always been an irrelevant entity, but they're trying not to be, right? And the WHO and everything's global, right? Everyone wants everything global. The United States has been the enemy of that forever to these people because we're never been on us and our damn freedom. Like we're so annoying to them that it's not even funny. But you're right. Doesn't matter who comes in and out, right? Larry Fisk could retire tomorrow. The next CEO of BlackRock will be there in full force next year. It is what it is. This movement has been going on for 50, 60 years. You know, they're only coming clean about it in the last 2 years. Now, you know, credit to many who were called conspiracy theorists over the decades. It's clear they were all right. And I was one that was blowing them all off and saying, you're ridiculous, get out of here, get your tinfoil hat, whatever. But there have been people throughout my life who have been trying to explain this to me as these people met every year. And I've never once took them seriously. And now, you know, now that they're out there on platforms explaining to you in such a callous and sad, the way they explain it to you is like, it's not even like, hey, we want to sell you this idea. You know, it's like, here's what the new world will look like. Like they're just telling you. Like they're so embedded right now that they're just telling you. And they've got a good 30% of our population who are dialed in, who are unsavable. You know, all the clips we play from Yuri Bezmenov, you know, they're just stuck with them now. That's it. That's what he said. He said once with the ideological subversion, which is the same tactic they're using, they're just continuing it on. And you know, what Yuri said was once they're demoralized, as he called it, you know, that's it. You've lost them. Forget it. They're programmed to react to certain stimuli. This is why you get some people that they're always bringing up Trump, because they don't have another argument. They don't even understand the world issues that are at hand right now, right? And it's so they always go back to Trump, and they see the world as like either people who love Trump or people who don't like Trump. Like to them, everything is about Trump. And it's like, Trump's been gone now for a while. And frankly, you know, he hasn't been relevant in some time. And if he comes back, God bless. If he's running against Biden, he's got my vote. That's for damn sure. I mean, really, I'm a DeSantis guy, personally. But if I have to get 4 years of Trump and then 8 years of DeSantis, I don't mind that. I could live with that. Either way, those presidents will do what I personally am asking the next president to do. And that's not F everything up while we the people do our job. Because in the end, Trump, DeSantis, none of them are fixing this. There's no Superman. Superman is not coming. There's no ballot box that you can fix the election process. You could do it all. There's no ballot box that's going to fix this problem. The only people that are going to fix this problem is we the people. That's it. That's it. There is no Superman. Let it go. All the noise you hear, all the garbage, oh, this is going, they want to do this, they want to do that, they want to do this. It's all noise. Just forget it. Get it out of your head. Get it out of your head. There's one, because in the end, there's always going to be another one. I mean, I could sit here, if I wanted to do material on this, I could do it all day. I could do I watch Dan Bongino, I watch those types of shows. The stuff they talk about, everything, I mean, I like them all, but like, when I think about the topics, it's like, dude, it's just another, and we started this way. We started out doing this with the Civic Secures Democracy Act. They want to pass that. It's going to infect our schools with CRT. Our schools are already infected with CRT. I used to get mad about these concepts, and in the end, once I learned about convention of states, like it literally just, and I researched it, and I got past all the runaway convention stuff and all that nonsense, and I just got to the meat and potatoes and put it in historical context, read the Federalist Papers, read Madison's notes, understand them well, and understand what this process is and how it would work. That was it for me. That was it for me. I understood at that moment that this is it. All energy needs to be focused on this. Yeah, we can still watch our favorite shows. We can still get upset over the different stuff that goes on. But in the end, if you want to do something, if you want to actually do something, this is what you do. This is what you do. You call a convention of states. You call your legislator. You go to right from our website, patriotthinktank.com. All right, you go there. /cause, all right, /COS will take you right to the page that has the link it'll take you over. That link will open up the Convention of States Action website, where they will send a letter on your behalf when you register with them and sign the petition to your representative. All right, and then you need to stop there. All right, you need to learn. You need to go through the education process, understand what this is. We haven't had civics in our schools forever, and the reality of the matter is we all suffered for it. All right, I considered myself someone not just loves the Constitution, but understood it well. And this one, I just learned about this a year and a half ago. Had no idea. I knew all about the way to amend the Constitution. It never even occurred to me that we could do this. It's not like I haven't read it. It didn't stand out to me the way it did when I realized this movement and what's going on. And 19 states are on board now. We will be over 20 before the year's end. But the reality is, if people got fired up, if people saw this the way I see this, if people saw this the way Jack sees this, and the way all the grassroots, the millions of grassroots around the country see this, if people saw it that way, we could be calling this convention almost immediately. Like, it's that there are that many resolutions written that if they were to just get voted on, because that's what's happening, is they're either not voting on them or they're punting, because they're not educated. It is what it is. They're laymen, our state legislatures. They're not, lifetime politicians. And a lot of them don't understand the back and forth that goes on about convention of states. It's our job to educate them and to get this stuff passed. It's our job to do that. Let's get to some more comments. Can you explain the flaw in Make America Great Again? So I don't know that it's a flaw. I don't know that did I say there was a flaw in Make America Great? I don't think I did, unless you're just asking that generally. Look, in spirit, that whole movement, was catchy. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, America is in decline. All right. As far as winning the war against Marxists and things like that, that war's already lost. Like, we have to create a whole new fight. It's clear when you see that we have to make legislation now to stop teachers from gender counseling third graders. Clearly, we lost that battle. Like, that initial battle is over. All right. The war continues though, but that fight we lost. Like we need to, at some point we got to accept the fact that you lost and start a new one. All right. And that's really where it's at socially right now. But I don't have any problem with Make America Great Again. We can go at that all day. I just, for me, Trump's just really divisive. And like, it's not that I care about his divisiveness because I agree with his policies. So in the end, I'm a policy guy. And if I agree with someone's policies, I get over the mean tweets. They mean nothing to me. I'm not even on Twitter. But the reality of the matter is, I just feel like DeSantis would from a policy perspective would be identical. All right. He's got the same attitude. He's the same guy essentially, but he's the same guy without this, you've got all this Trump dysphoria and all these crazy people. Like, I just don't want to, like, it's exhausting to go. It's exhausting to have to defend tweets and do that stuff, but I'll do it. I'll do it before I take another 4 years of Biden. That's for damn sure. Or whatever doo-doo they try to put in his place. So for sure. So thanks for that. Was unaware. Pay more attention in the state's reps. We need healthy leaders. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We do need it. It's all about the state legislatures. I can't say it enough. I say it as many times as I can. It's all about the state legislatures. They are the most powerful people in this country. So that, and then, and that's just that. People need to understand that most of us, these state legislator elections go on, like people aren't even paying attention in a lot of cases. For many, many years, I didn't really pay attention. I didn't understand the way it's supposed to work because the way I thought I understood it, but I learned from the same woke, and we didn't think they were woke, and they were woke. They were woke. They were learning the same garbage. They were learning the same garbage. And so we learned that garbage, and and this goes for everybody. This goes for the indoctrinated Marxists. This goes for the person like me who used to believe, I used to defend the Patriot Act and going into Iraq. I thought it was just, I'm from Queens, New York. I was living in Hackensack when 9/11 happened. I was ready for it. I was like, yeah, we need the Patriot Act. We got to protect ourselves for our security. There were people there telling me, George, honestly, this is never going to go away. Like, you need to shut up and you need to not support this. And I'd be like, you don't know what you're talking about. This Bush is there for us. Like I laugh when I think about the way that I thought. Like, everybody needs to rethink the way that they thought and start looking at the world from a different lens and one where you question everything. You question everything. It's just how it has to be. So we got a Trump 2024, DeSantis 2028 and 32. Yeah, I'm fine with that. Like, look, in essence, if we can do that, that's phenomenal. Then yes, I'm in. I'm in. So, like I said, maybe Trump will come in 2024 and it won't be as chaotic. Maybe it won't be. Maybe it won't be as, psycho and divisive and crazy. But, it is what it is. So you got Dirty Shirt here, says, give it up. You mean give it up like you want to give me a round of applause? Everybody gets it up there. Don't worry about it. So I'm all for it there, Dirty Shirt. So, but in the end, really, I want to end off one of the things I want to end off in regarding elites. If you're not familiar with Thomas Sowell, you really should become familiar with Thomas Sowell. He's one of the better thinkers of our day, and has been on the side of righteousness going back all the way into the 60s and 70s. And he's really someone who I think people should listen to. And he made a comment about intellectuals and experts, which I thought was pretty profound. And I wanted to play it for everybody, and I'm going to play it right now.
There are other people with great intelligence whose end products are things like the Salk vaccine. A
research scientist is not necessarily an intellectual.
That's right.
An engineer isn't necessarily an intellectual.
That's right. Because the engineer is judged by the end product, which is not simply ideas. If he builds a building that collapses, it doesn't matter how brilliant his idea was, he's ruined. Conversely, if an intellectual who's brilliant has an idea for rearranging society, and that ends in disaster, he pays no price at all.
That's right. And that I thought it was very profound, because what he goes on to explain earlier, and I'm gonna add the link to that video as well, so that you guys can watch it and get introduced to Thomas, or if not, than just catch a good one by him. But he mentions consequences. What is it? Consequential knowledge, right? And it's basically, you know, information or action or an idea that comes with a consequence, right? And his argument was intellectuals in academia do not have consequential knowledge. They just don't. And he gives the example that he gave there in that quote where he says, you know, in the end, if you're an engineer, you're not an intellectual. Why? Because you have consequential knowledge, right? Intellectuals, the way he defines them, are people who the end product of their work is an idea and it's not a thing, right? Whereas an engineer, brilliant as they may be, right? Just take a look at, do a quick Google search of Dubai, and you'll get a good idea of what engineers can do. And, you know, in the end, he's saying an engineer is creating something that he's going to be held accountable for. He's building a building, and no matter how twisty and curvy and crazy and revolutionary the building is, if it crumbles at the end, no one cares how good the idea was. He's never going to work again. Whereas an intellectual can destroy the entire economy with something like modern monetary theory and pump this down the line for decades into people's heads. It's a powerful people like Dick Cheney and our leaderships, etc. And it can be an epic failure for decades, but they'll never be held accountable for it. There'll never be a consequence for the damage that those intellectuals do. And that's a big reason why. I mean, he says before that, I didn't add it into the quote, but he says before that most of what has gone wrong in this world came at the hands of so-called experts. Okay. And every bad decision that was made, he pulls out FDR, stretching, you know, listening to his experts and stretching out, turning the Depression into the Great Depression, you know, despite the fact that there were economists everywhere yelling at him to not do everything that he was doing. He did it anyway. And then it lasted 10 years instead of a normal cyclical depression. And it might have been a little bit worse than a cyclical depression, but it was already starting to correct itself before he jumped in and started going crazy. You know, at the point of the Depression at the beginning, unemployment went to 9%. By 1930, it dropped to about 6%. And then the government got involved and it went into double digits and stayed there for 10 years. So, and that's because of experts. That's because experts and intellectuals were advising on all of this, and that's where it went. So, just I'm glad you said that. Policy changes everything. Trump and I probably couldn't hang out, but policies. Now there's something to get behind. Vote for policy in 2020 is what I said. Yeah, it is. It's all about policy, right? My fear of Trump in the beginning, and he squashed those fears. But in the very beginning, when he was running, you know, I was a Cruz guy, and I was a Cruz guy partially because I was still in that frame of mind, but also, you know, Cruz was a Tea Party guy. He was not a, you know, people now look at him as he's an establishment politician, but that's not where he was then. And that's, you know, and there's still an element of him that's not fully establishment, but he's been around long enough, and Lord knows he's going to keep running until he's dead. So in the unless we term limit him, right? But in the end, you know, I was a Cruz guy because the thing about Trump that concerned me, and I've known, you know, I've followed Trump my whole life being from New York. The thing about him that concerned me initially was that everything's negotiable. And in some ways that's good because he is a good negotiator in general. And that's a good thing. But when everything's negotiable, the question is, where is your core? And I wasn't sure that he had one. Right. And I didn't doubt that he loved America. I didn't doubt that his intentions were good. But I definitely, when someone says everything's negotiable, which he has said all throughout his life, I look at that and say, okay, there have to be some core issues that they're non-negotiable. Like, this is a core belief that I have that I will not negotiate and I will not give in on. And I don't know exactly what that is for him, but I can tell you that once he got into office, his policy changes, his decisions for Supreme Court justices, all of those things, the things that mattered to me from a policy standpoint, those things he made the right calls on, with the exception of taxes. He totally mangled the tax thing, but whatever. Like, I've been living my whole life with a mangled tax code, so it wasn't the end of the world. He was able to deregulate to some degree. You know, he was able to, but really what he contributed the most was, aside from dealing with China, the way he dealt with China was fantastic. It's my favorite thing to this day about him. But my second favorite thing is the exposure of all of this stuff we're talking about now. Trump doesn't become president, there are still Americans walking around thinking that CNN is a legitimate news organization, or watching MSNBC thinking that, it's a left-wing media conspiracy. Like, everyone knows now, it's common knowledge that these people are all in the tank and that they cannot be trusted, right? And frankly, neither can Fox News. I'm not even, there's plenty of people on Fox News who are in the tank and full of crap. We started this whole channel off pointing out Fox News for their treatment of Newt Gingrich when he mentioned George Soros. If you haven't seen that clip, go back to our first episode. It's in the second half of the episode. That's back like a year, though, so you're going to have to do some scrubbing. Or actually, our second episode ever, Behind the Riots. All right, so let me see what we got here. All right, I think that is it for the comments. And if I missed anybody, leave another comment, because I don't think I did. I tried to get everybody. It's hard. I'm producing, talking, trying to keep my frame of thought, and it gets a little confusing. But here we go. So he said he had to win me too. Yeah, I never thought he could do what he did. Yeah, me neither. I did not think Donald Trump would have been what he was, and I'm thankful that it was there. I'm just at this point, I'm like, I feel like I'd love Donald Trump to get behind a convention of states. That's where I see, if Donald Trump would get behind a convention of states, we'd be calling. I mean, the people that follow Donald Trump now, there's people who will vote for him, and then there's people who are rabid about him. And it's like, if Donald Trump were to go ahead and just get behind, educate himself on convention of states. I was fired up to hear that Rudy Giuliani is now looking at it in a much better light. And if you watch that episode that I talked about it, I might even play it again. The episode that I talked about it, I was solo live, kind of like I am now, but a lot. But in the beginning, something was going on with my software. My mic was out, and I spent the whole thing talking about that. And I lost everybody because they're like, I wouldn't want to listen to me not speaking either. So Rudy Giuliani had, I think it was the media relations, Gary, I'm forgetting his last name. If there's any cause people out here, the media director, I believe he was, for Convention of States Action. He actually did something, not because of us, but something that we actually talked about. My brother actually brought this up to me, would be a great idea, is for people to start calling in to these national news stations and talking about costs and bringing up costs. And every time they do it, they're going to be instantly speaking to, thousands, if not a million or so people. And so he did something similar where he was thinking the same way. Like, he was sitting down and he was like, listening to Rudy Giuliani's radio show, and he goes on and he calls him and then opens up the conversation with Rudy. And Rudy actually walked away from it. I only got a snippet of it that I got from a Convention of States Project video, but in the end, they gave you where Rudy left off, and it was that he had just heard the best argument for it that he's heard yet, and he's going to look into it. Now, the ramifications of that could be meaningless, or they could be huge. Now, Rudy, the circles that Rudy are in will eventually touch somebody like a Donald Trump, and if Rudy looks into this, and mind you, he's a legal mind, right? So if he looks into this, digs into the history, gets past, of course, he's going to have to get past the runaway convention theory and all that, which I can help him with. I'll send him some videos. But once he gets past that and gets himself on board, this could be a big deal. I mean, if Donald Trump were to come out, because honestly, if he didn't run for president, I'd be better off let DeSantis run for president and let Trump lead his armies to convention of states, rather than deal with all these different senators and he's supporting Dr. Oz and this doo-doo and that doo-doo. Just forget them for a minute. Let them win on their own merits and focus here. Because this is the kind of thing, if Trump were to do that, if Trump were to turn his energy towards it, now the downside is he may really polarize everybody, because it's not really a partisan issue right now. But if he got involved, it would become a partisan issue with all the Trump dysphoria people. So there's that element of it. But in the end, if he did get his minions activated and get everybody fired up and going out doing a thing, I can't imagine that it would fail. I can't imagine that the convention would not be called. And in the end, if it passes, the changes that will take place in America, we'll be talking about this for 250 years. We'll be talking about easily 250 years from now, they will be talking about the day that they will get, that the American people rose up and passed Convention of States and changed the Constitution to get back to federalism, which is where it belongs. And the changes that would take place in the country with the elimination of the income tax, now it's unconstitutional. Not just a president saying, you know, or Congress saying we're going to change the tax code, but making it straight unconstitutional, right? That's a game changer. That because it's not easy, as we all know. You know, all my Convention of States folks, we all know it's not easy, but in the end, right? In the end, it's necessary. And once it's done, like, look, the 16th Amendment passed. We haven't been able to overturn it since. Right? We haven't been able to overturn it since. It's 100 years ago, more than 100 years ago. We haven't been able to overturn it. Like, this is altering. This is country altering for the better. All right, for the better. Everyone gets to keep the own merits of their work, right? And we all pay the same, you know, then we could start yelling about what the sales tax will be. But in the end, that's a better argument to have than say, you know what, I don't know if I want to take this promotion because it's going to put me in that tax bracket and the back taxes that I'm going to have to pay are going to make things worse. That should never be the case. That should never be the case. So, all right. So look what we got here, guys. Look who we got here. Anybody know who he is?
Baby, I'm a Biden boy. I'm a Biden boy.
That's right. We got another one. So you guys get to come up too. I take the insults well. Don't worry about it. I got a sense of humor. It's almost incomprehensible rambling, totally incompetent presenter. You, my friend, are what they call demoralized. What Yuri Bezmenov would call demoralized, right? You're that person that cannot be saved. But I don't believe that. I don't believe that, Richard. I think we can save you. I don't know how. But I think with enough effort, we can save you. He's just troll. Yeah, he's definitely a troll. But I enjoy the trolls too. All right. Make sure. So, Richard, does that mean you're not going to subscribe to the channel? Is that what that means? Am I not getting you as a subscriber? It's going to break my heart. I want you to come on and give me some good stuff every week. Oh man, that's fun. All right. So I mean, I got through and I got the Thomas Sowell quote in. That's really was going to be the gist of it. So we're well past the hour. I thought this might go to an hour and a half. I do appreciate everybody. I appreciate all your engagement, your comments. Make sure you subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, so we're on YouTube. We're not on Rumble today, but we're on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. So if you're watching from any of those platforms, Facebook, make sure you leave a comment on Facebook. Make sure you like the video on Facebook, and make sure you share on YouTube. We need you to click that bell, click the subscribe button, and Twitch. To all of our 7 subscribers on Twitch, after celebrating 1,000 plus on YouTube, I'm like, I look at Twitch, like Jack be asking me, why are we still on Twitch? The reason I stay on Twitch is because Twitch is inundated with people of, let's just say, how do you say it? Alternate opinion?
Baby, I'm a Biden boy. I'm a Biden boy.
Yeah. So he's on Twitch, right? So that, but also Twitch, we get a lot of people from other countries. So we got a lot of international play feedback from time to time, from show to show. I remember one of those 7 followers is from Kazakhstan. He jumped on when we were having the Ukraine conversation back in the day, and so I stay on there. Plus, I like to invite people who, you know, I don't want it to become an echo chamber either. So even though, you know, what our main focus is Convention of States, and it's not a partisan issue. And we showed the polls for that. They always turn out the same way. It's over 50% of Democrat voters that are in favor of convention of states. So it's 81% or so of the Republican base, and then 66 or so percent of the they're in those ranges of the independents. So 2/3 of the country as a whole are in support of what the amendment topics are. So I don't want to keep this sheltered as far as who we want to encourage to watch, who we don't. I understand those who are Trump dysphoric, are not going to be able to deprogram themselves. It is what it is. But, in the end, I want to make sure that I'm being invitive to everybody, because you never know. You never know. Those Kennedy Democrats are out there, the classic liberal, the Dave Rubins of the world. These people, these people are still rational. They still believe in free speech. They're not, just because every Marxist is a Democrat doesn't mean every Democrat is a Marxist, right? And really, my fight, like I've said a million times, I don't see Democrats and Republicans. I see Marxists and I see Americans. So if you're pro-Constitution, you're pro-free speech, you're not into silencing people, you can't stand cancel culture, all of that, then you're an American in my eyes, right? It's not that I have the ultimate authority to tell you what you are, but if you're a Marxist, I don't need the authority. You're just, by nature, by definition, you're not American. I don't care what your birth certificate says or whatever. You're anti-American. You are, because that the essence of Marxism is just that. So, but in the end, it is what it is. So we let those people in, and we let them pop off, and I give them time, and I put them up as well, because hey, it's just the kind of guy I am. But until next time, folks, my next video coming out will be that walkthrough on the website for WEF. We're going to go over the food innovation hubs, the Netherlands, the whole nine, and really just try to focus on what the WEF is telling you, right? And try and give you something that when you have a friend that you're trying to explain, look, they're telling you. They're not, I'm not getting this from some, conspiracy website. Like, this is the World Economic Forum's actual website. Like, this is what they believe. This is what they're moving towards, and the world leaders are involved. So, it gives you different perspective. Like I say with the shirt, once you see things differently, right? You can't unsee this stuff. Once you understand, like today, for those that didn't understand how these people look at money, right? If you didn't think that if you thought that they still looked at it like, well, they need to tax so that they can spend, like, when you put it together, it's like, do they? Because in the end, they spend far more than they tax. So it's like, are they really believing in that concept? And the answer, of course, after today is no, right? Well, it always was no, but after today, hopefully you understand that it's no, and that people like Stephanie Kelton are walking around intellectual circles, educating people on that very madness, and trying to buy people into the belief that you can just, keep printing to oblivion, and that's how they're going to pay for their utopia. And it's just, we see now, right? The quotes that from the speakings that she did before, although she still defends it, bizarrely enough, but from the quotes before, you hear a downplaying inflation, and like those talks didn't age well, did they? So everything that every true economist believed in is true. And it's come true, and we're watching it. And modern monetary theory is nonsense. But in the end, these dutrus on the screen right now, they believe that stuff, and that's all that matters. That's all that matters, because those people are the ones who are going to be setting policy. And as they create one crisis after the other to come in and save you from, it's important that you see. It's important that you understand that they're causing the crisis. The crisis is not organic. And once you understand that they're causing the crisis, you're much less likely to follow them. And that's really the goal of these next few videos that we put out regarding the Great Reset and the WEF. So with that being said, another successful venture, no major problems during the broadcast. I appreciate everyone who responded. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I'm out.
Like that.